My name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Today I wanted to talk about the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association was born on the 16th of November in 1871 in New York. The beginning myth of the National Rifle Association says that it was started by two Union generals who were dissatisfied with the marksmanship of their soldiers. And so they organized the NRA as an educational tool. And they are an educational tool. I don't have a birth time for this organization, so I put their sun I put their sun on the midheaven as in born at noon. Now, if there'd been a person, I'd have put that sun here, born at dawn. And but this is a public entity, and a very powerful public entity, so it's quite comfortable up there on the midheaven. Now, Michael Moore suggested that, thinks that the NRA was started by Confederate generals with a plot to rearm the South, to fight against Reconstruction. And it worked to do that. So whether it was organized by the Union generals or the Confederate generals, it definitely was used to put down the freed blacks in the South. It was a small part of it, but an important part, I think. Let's look at this chart. Maybe we can get a better, clearer idea by looking at the planets and their aspects. First of all, we've got the Sun in the 24th degree of Scorpio in opposition to Pluto. The Sun in opposition to Pluto. Pluto in Taurus. Now, a Sun-Pluto opposition has to do with power struggles. And you've got Pluto in opposition. You are afraid that you have lost power and are going to have to work to regain it. This Pluto is ruled by this Venus. Venus is in miserable condition. It's in its own sign, so it's a very valuable Venus. But it's in the 8th house, and it's got it's got a square to Saturn and Mars. Now, that Saturn and Mars is squaring a Venus is insensitivity at the very least, cruelty, no holds barred. So the Venus doesn't have any good aspects to her, and if we were to say that the Confederate generals had started this Venus would represent the freed slaves. They are free. They are looking forward to life, but they have no power. They have this terrible square to them, and this opposition of Chiron. The wound, it's here in the 2nd house, and so there was a wounding by war. That's what the Chiron is in Aries is. This Chiron is also squared to this Saturn-Mars conjunction in Capricorn. The moon is squared to Neptune. This ambitious moon, ambitious because it's ruled by that Saturn in Capricorn. This ambitious moon is in the house of secrets and plotting, if you will. And it is square to Neptune, and that helps the plotting, and that helps the secrets. The Neptune is the planet of the liar, the one who hides, whatever. Anyway, and it has to do with losses and the devastation in the South after the Civil War was truly, truly terrible. Anyway, the losses, this would be the losses of property, 2nd house. This Venus is has escaped from the second house. This property has escaped. This valuable Venus in Libra property has escaped. And I think that they are determined not particularly to get it back, but to counter the power that the black man now has because he is a citizen and free. John Wilkes Booth didn't do the South any favors by killing Lincoln because Reconstruction just went south. Well, it went to hell. And the South was pretty much hell for everybody down in there at that time. It was the black man thought he could vote, he could go into politics, he could go into business, and the Southerners who had lost this war were determined that he wouldn't. Anyway, let's just leave whatever myth is real to this, and you make up your own mind. I've already made up mine. I'm with Michael Moore, so you could probably tell that already. So let's just talk about this National Rifle Association. We've got here. Let me go through it. It's this could be arbitrary. This ascendant. It's in Aquarius. We've got the Moon in 19 Capricorn, Saturn, Mars in 7 Capricorn, the South Node in the 22nd degree of Sagittarius, Mercury in the 2nd degree of Sagittarius, Sun in the 24th degree of Scorpio, Venus in the 9th degree of Libra. We've got Uranus in 1 degree Leo retrograde, conjunct Jupiter in 29 degree Cancer 55. That is how close it is to being conjunct to that Uranus. We've got this North Node up here at 21 degrees Gemini 59. Pluto down here at 18 degrees Taurus 47 is retrograde, as is the Uranus over there. And Neptune here at 21 Aries 50 degrees is also retrograde. And here's Chiron at 7 degrees Aries. So we've got the Chiron, the Venus, and Mars, Saturn in a T-square. It's a very harsh T-square. And because Neptune is in there, it's an unforgiving one. So, let me see, what else did I want to tell you. The organization itself has a strong business interests, and it did from the very beginning. I mean, this is power. This is business. This organization is about business, and the arms business. And let me see. We've got the South Node up here in the 11th house is friends in high places, and it is ruled by Jupiter conjunct Uranus. A second saying of friends in high places, and the NRA has friends in the highest places in the United States, in the highest office of the United States. So let's talk about the balance. It's got only one air sign, and that air sign is very, very afflicted, that Venus. And an imbalance of air like that makes you uncooperative. You lack in objectivity, and an inability to adjust, which is also said by there being only one mutable sign there, and that's that Mercury. The only adjustment is to keep on keeping on, but to deal with what you have ahead of you. But the motivation is never changing. This is a very fixed horoscope here. Fixed in attitude, fixed in goals, fixed signs on the cusps. So And we've got the moon in the 12th house there, which is ambitious and secretive and doesn't tell the truth. It's that square to Neptune. Okay, this Mars, Saturn in Capricorn is at an interesting aspect to this Uranus Jupiter. It's a 165-degree aspect, which some have called the quindicile. It is an aspect of great tenacity. It's the snapping turtle aspect. Once one's objective is not easily let go of with that aspect. It helps, it helps people to stick to what they want to do, to stick to their job. Why I like this chart is because of its connection with the United States chart. So let me turn you here so you can see both charts, and goodbye. You won't see me for a minute here. And while you can't see me, I will have a sip of water. That is the chart of the United States of America. This chart is a moon phase 5. A moon phase 5 is the most powerful moon phase in the Earth quarter. It's one of the power rectangle, and it is it speaks to the fact that nobody has been able to cross the NRA and survive. I mean, politically at least. So let's look at the connection with the United States here. The ascendant and descendant of the NRA are on the nodes of the U.S. Now, okay, this Saturn-Mars conjunction is opposing the U.S. Venus-Jupiter over here. This Mercury here septiles the USA Saturn. That's a 7-degree aspect. I mean 7 degrees, sorry. Division of the zodiac by 7. And that aspect is one that affects the future. This Mercury here also is in conjunct the U.S. Venus. In conjunct the U.S. Venus. And that is an inconjunct. There are two kinds of inconjunct. If I may demonstrate on this one, there's the inconjunct from the 1st to the 6th. And that's a crisis of health. It is this you have to work on. It's a work issue. It's a health issue. And this inconjunct to the 8th house is death of relationships and virtually death issues. So this inconjunct from this Mercury to this issue is the 8th house inconjunct, the hard one. Actually, they're both hard, but if you persevere on either of them, they are transforming. That's what the inconjunct is all about. Work together, these two unalike, very much unalike, dissimilar signs, powers, must learn to work together, and doing so proves very beneficial to whoever is doing the work. So what else do I have? The natal moon in Capricorn here of the NRA trines our Pluto Pluto. This moon is fairly comfortable with death. I mean, it's used to it. I don't know where I was going with that because I'm not comfortable with that. Anyway, we come to the sun, and it is sextile the U.S. Neptune up there in the 9th house of, these are the communication houses. This is Gemini, ruled by, it's Gemini, and this is Sagittarius. So this is the communication and the meaning. So this is publishing, communication across distances, letters. And this is usually talking one-to-one. So I don't know why I got off onto that, but I did. The U.S. Neptune here is, look how tightly square they are, that Neptune is to these nodes here. And you get squares to the nodes. If you get, even if you get a planet in the same number as the nodes, it can, whatever the sign is, if it's in the same degree, it's karmic and important. So our Neptune up here is very important to these nodes and the NRA. It seems to me, well, I want to talk to you about this. We've got a square right here between, the U.S. has, between the Neptune and Mars. And one of the results of that is that we've never gone into a war, that our brave leaders haven't lied to us to get us into it. We've been deceived, and we're easily deceived. Anyway, what this also means is this is the warrior. It's an image of a warrior, but it's negative. It's not. This is not the peaceful warrior. You'd have to have the Neptune in sextile or trine to that Mars to get a peaceful warrior. This warrior is not peaceful, and is easily aroused into war. Lie to us, and we'll go to war. And we go to war because we are paranoid. The Mercury opposite the Pluto. We are paranoid. And the South Node says we don't really want to have to deal with all of this. We just are, we don't care. We're the moon here in Aquarius. This moon, a sucky moon in Aquarius, that is not only unaspected, so it just sort of, it does what it does, and has a very short attention span. Anything can distract us. And that's what's changing, is the transit of the South Node across the South Node just recently. That transit pretty shook us up pretty much, and shook a lot of us awake. And I think that our disassociation from our government is ending, and we're becoming responsible. And we're ruled by Saturn. This Aquarius isn't just ruled by the Uranus. Its old ruler was Saturn. And so there's a responsibility that we are free to take to run our government. There's that Saturn in Libra right up there on the top. So anyway, get back to the NRA. What the NRA does with this Mercury, and it's got this septile to the U.S. Saturn. And so it works, this U.S. Saturn. This is the people that run our government. It's septile, and it's connections to the Venus are help it a lot, because they can easily sell to us. They can easily sell themselves. the NRA can sell their whatever their objective is to the government and to us. One way it does this by manipulating our image of the warrior. We all are warriors now due to the NRA. We are all armed. We have more guns than people in this country, in private hands. So there was a Jupiter connection I wanted to talk about. This Jupiter. This Jupiter is conjunct our Mercury. Now Jupiter has to do with communication, and it has to do with publishing and beliefs and meaning. Jupiter has to do with meaning. Well, this Jupiter is at 29. It's 5 minutes from making the break into Leo. And this is always a crisis. 29th degree is a critical degree, a crisis degree. And so this Jupiter in its crisis degree can so easily manipulate this paranoid Mercury that we've got here, this Mercury in opposing Pluto. The NRA appeals to our warrior image, and it appeals to our paranoia. So the history of the NRA, it plugged along doing its thing until the 70s. Now, the 70s were hard on the United States. Nixon was elected in 72. The Harvard Business School declared that greed was good in the 70s. Chiron was discovered in 77, so that's one good thing that happened in 77. But in May 21st of 1977, the business interests took over the NRA. It was called a coup. But I think it was, the business interests had always been a huge part of the NRA. The business of weapons, the business of war. What roused them, though, was that there was a Gun Control Act was passed in 1968. Remember back when that Pluto was conjunct Uranus in Virgo. And people had the brains, and our Congress had the guts to pass a Gun Control Act. Well, this alarmed the business interests in the NRA, and the NRA at the time, their progressed Venus was conjunct the U.S. South Node. Their progressed Venus had conjuncted this. And their progressed Saturn had conjuncted their own natal, ambitious, secretive, carefully plotting moon. Their progressed moon had conjuncted their natal sun. So this was all of a sudden a very activated chart. Very activated chart. The progressed Mars was at 29 degrees of Pisces. And, the 29th degree is a critical degree, and in Pisces it has to do with waning power. The world kind of comes to a complete standstill. And then it gears up, and Aries is an explosion of energy. So the NRA had the business interests took over the NRA on May 21st, 1977, and they began calling for a repeal of the Gun Control Act. They formed a full-time lobbying arm to oppose all firearm restrictions. And this was happening while other countries were tightening their gun laws. And at that time, we were passing concealed carry. You don't think Putin lets people run amok with the guns like he encourages the U.S. citizens to run amok with guns. One president or CEO of the NRA, Harlan Carter, he turned the NRA into a political power with his lobbying arm. And if I can quote from Harlan Carter, he wants an NRA so strong that no politician in America, mindful of his political career, would want to challenge our goals. So the NRA has managed to redefine the Second Amendment. No longer do people consider, a well-organized or well-regulated militia part of the Second Amendment. And it's in there if you need to be a part of a well-organized militia if you want to bear arms. Well, that's gone. The NRA, through the NRA came at least a third of the money that elected George W. Bush. In 2003, the Tyler Amendment meant that all data on gun violence that had been collected by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were not to be given to the public. This is not public information. In 2005, the Congress passed a law immunizing gun manufacturers from lawsuits. U.S. teens are more than 82 times more likely to be murdered by guns than teens in any other civilized or advanced nation. In the solar return, the NRA was a moon phase 8. So there's always a change of goals in a moon phase 8. Let's see if they can step up and actually do that. Their solar return had their 8th house, the house of reckoning, moved to the ascendant. And they have a sun, Jupiter, in their 2nd house, square Mars and the moon in the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of children. The 2nd house is the house of their own values and money, and it's square to the Mars moon in the 5th house of children. And the children have awakened. And let's hope that that their voice will be heard. I'm hopeful. It's time for people to take responsibility for the direction our government, our nation goes. And I think I'm hoping that that's what will happen to the NRA, that their goals will be forcibly changed by the children who are getting tired of being murdered, the children among us. Well, power to the people, and God bless you, and stay safe in this paranoid U.S. of A. See you later. Bye-bye.